Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to talk to you about something deeply human, something we all face at one point or another. The emotional stages a man goes through when someone stops caring for him. Now, I know this may sound like a scene from a movie, but trust me, this is as real as it gets. And I promise, this isn't just for the fellas. This is a lesson for everyone about relationships, self-awareness, and growth. So, 1, the shock of change. You see, when someone who once cared for you suddenly pulls back, it feels like a cold wind in the middle of summer. A man might not show it right away, but inside there's a moment of, wait, what just happened? It's that shock, that jolt to the system that makes him realize something's different. And let me tell you, folks, it's not just about losing affection. It's about losing the rhythm of connection. 2, denial and justification. Now, here's where the mental gymnastics begin. They'll say, nah, it's just a phase, or she's just busy. Denial isn't just a river in Egypt, it's a comfort zone. Because facing the truth, that's hard. Denial is easy, but it's also a trap. You can't heal what you don't confront. 3, confusion and self-doubt. And then comes the overthinking. He'll replay conversations, analyze looks, and try to find the moment things went off track. He might ask himself, is it me? Did I do something wrong? And let me tell you, this stage is tough because self-doubt can eat at your confidence if you let it. 4, the search for validation. Now here's where the behavior changes. He starts looking for validation, sometimes in all the wrong places. This might mean working longer hours, seeking attention from others, or diving into distractions. But what he's really searching for isn't out there, it's within himself. It's the need to feel valued again. 5, the realization of accountability. But then there's a turning point. If he's paying attention, if he's open to growth, he'll realize, maybe I had a role in this. Accountability isn't easy, folks. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing the cracks. But it's also the first step to putting things back together. 6, emotional growth or retreat. Finally, there's a choice to be made. Does he learn from this? Does he use the pain to grow, to become better, stronger, more aware? Or does he retreat, building walls to protect himself from ever feeling vulnerable again? The choice defines the man. And it's a choice we all face at some point. The first emotional stage a man faces when someone stops caring for him is the shock of change. This stage is profound because it challenges the foundation of what he believed to be a stable relationship. Imagine walking into a room you've entered 1,000 times, but this time, something crucial is missing. A familiar chair, a favorite painting. That's the feeling. Something fundamental has shifted, and it's disorienting. For a man, care is often interpreted as stability and trust. It could be the small, everyday actions, a thoughtful question about his day, the way someone listens attentively, or even the occasional reminder that he's appreciated. These gestures become part of his emotional ecosystem. When those gestures disappear, it's like the air gets sucked out of the room. He feels it instantly, even if he can't articulate it right away. This stage is not just about emotional disconnection. It's about losing an anchor. When someone stops caring, a man doesn't just feel the absence of love or affection, he feels the absence of security. It's a raw, vulnerable moment because men are often conditioned to view relationships as constants. They see them as things that, once established, don't require constant reevaluation. So when care is withdrawn, it's a jarring realization. Relationships are not static. They're dynamic and require ongoing effort from both sides. The shock often manifests physically. He might find himself unable to focus, sleep, or even eat properly. His body reacts before his mind fully comprehends what's happening. It's a visceral response to an emotional shift. This is because care, when given consistently, creates a sense of balance. And when that balance is disrupted, the body and mind go into overdrive, searching for stability. One of the most challenging aspects of this stage is the silence. Many men don't openly express their emotions, particularly feelings of hurt or abandonment. Instead, they internalize the shock, wearing a mask of composure while turmoil brews underneath. Society has often taught men to tough it out, but this approach only deepens the emotional impact of the shock. Furthermore, the shock of change forces introspection. In the quiet moments, he begins to wonder, why did this happen? Was it something I did? Could I have seen this coming? This stage, though painful, is also an opportunity for growth. The shock creates space for him to assess not just the relationship, but also his own emotional needs and contributions. However, not all men handle the shock constructively. Some might retreat into denial, trying to convince themselves that everything is fine. Others might lash out, channeling their confusion into anger or frustration. These reactions, while natural, can prolong the healing process. Ultimately, the shock of change is a wake-up call. It's the moment that sets the tone for how he'll navigate the rest of the emotional stages. Will he confront the discomfort and use it as a stepping stone for growth? Or will he allow it to consume him? The choice begins here, in the shock of realization. After the initial shock of realizing that someone has stopped caring, a man often enters the second stage, denial and justification. This stage serves as an emotional defense mechanism, a way to protect himself from fully facing the painful truth. Denial is like an emotional pause button. It delays the confrontation of reality and gives him time to adjust, though it can also prevent necessary progress. At its core, denial is about refusing to accept that the relationship dynamic has changed. The signs may be obvious: fewer conversations, colder interactions, or a noticeable distance. Yet he might tell himself, it's just a busy week, or they're stressed about something unrelated. These justifications aren't always dishonest. They can stem from genuine confusion or an unwillingness to acknowledge the deeper issue. Denial can feel like a safe harbor when the truth feels like a storm. Justification often goes hand in hand with denial. Here, a man tries to rationalize the other person's behavior. He may think, maybe I haven't been as attentive, and this is their way of responding. While self-reflection is valuable, this line of thinking can spiral into over-apologizing or overcompensating, often without addressing the root issue. He might start doing, once a man moves past the initial shock and denial of someone no longer caring for him, he often enters a deeply introspective stage, confusion and self-doubt. This stage is a pivotal moment in his emotional journey, as it forces him to confront unanswered questions, wrestle with insecurity, and attempt to make sense of the change. It is both a painful and transformative phase, one that can either lead to clarity or further emotional turmoil, depending on how it's navigated. Confusion arises because relationships often operate on unspoken rules and assumptions. A man may have believed that everything was fine. Conversations seemed normal, routines were steady, and there were no overt signs of dissatisfaction. Suddenly, the withdrawal of care feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. What happened? Did I miss something? These questions play on a loop, creating mental chaos. The lack of clear answers can make him feel as though he's stumbling in the dark, searching for clarity in a sea of ambiguity. During this phase, he may replay past interactions, searching for clues that might explain the shift. A simple comment, a distant glance, or a missed opportunity for connection becomes magnified in hindsight. The mind becomes hyper-focused on analyzing every detail, often to the point of overthinking. This process is emotionally draining. Self-doubt is one of the most challenging aspects of this stage. When care is withdrawn, it's natural to internalize the change and wonder, was it something I did? Am I not good enough? These thoughts can chip away at his confidence and self-esteem. He might question his worth, not just in the context of the relationship, but in other areas of his life as well. The feeling of being not enough can linger and create a sense of inadequacy. This stage can also trigger a deeper exploration of his identity and values. Relationships, especially those where care is deeply felt, often shape how we see ourselves. When that care is taken away, it can feel like losing a part of one's identity. A man may begin to wonder, who am I without this connection? This identity crisis can be both unsettling and enlightening, depending on how he chooses to approach it. However, confusion and self-doubt are not inherently negative. They serve an important purpose. They force introspection. This stage is an opportunity to evaluate not only the relationship, but also his own behavior, needs, and expectations. While it's easy to spiral into self-blame, this phase can also lead to valuable insights. He might realize areas where he can improve communication, set boundaries, or express his feelings more openly. The key to navigating this stage is balance. It's important to reflect but not to dwell. Seeking input from trusted friends, a mentor, or even a therapist can provide perspective and help break the cycle of overthinking. Self-doubt, when channeled constructively, can become a stepping stone for growth rather than a barrier to it. In summary, confusion and self-doubt are inevitable when someone stops caring, but they are also transformative. By embracing this stage as a chance to learn and grow, a man can begin to rebuild his sense of self and prepare for the next phase of his emotional journey. After navigating the initial shock, denial, and self-doubt that come with realizing someone no longer cares, a man often enters the stage of the search for validation. This phase is characterized by an intense need to feel valued, appreciated, and reassured, particularly after the emotional void created by the loss of care. The search for validation is a pivotal stage because it reflects a deep human desire, the need to feel seen and significant in someone else's eyes. When someone withdraws care, it can feel like an unspoken rejection, which can shake a man's confidence. To fill this void, he may turn outward, seeking affirmation from his environment. This search often begins subtly but can manifest in behaviors and actions that are outwardly visible. For example, he might pour himself into work, striving to achieve promotions, praise from colleagues, or accolades in his field can become substitutes for the emotional support he feels he's lost. Social interactions also become a critical focus during this stage. A man seeking validation might invest more energy in friendships or even casual acquaintances, hoping to receive the attention and acknowledgement he craves. Compliments, laughs, or signs of appreciation from others can temporarily fill the gap left by the absence of care in his personal relationship. However, these external sources of validation often provide only fleeting relief, as they don't address the deeper emotional wounds he's experiencing. Some men may turn to social media during this phase, using platforms as a way to garner attention and feedback. Posting photos, sharing accomplishments, or engaging in online conversations can feel like a quick way to measure self-worth. Each like, comment, or message becomes a small piece of validation. While this approach can offer temporary reassurance, it often lacks the depth needed to truly heal the underlying insecurities. For others, the search for validation might lead to risky or self-destructive behaviors. In an effort to feel desirable, some men might seek attention in unhealthy ways, such as pursuing relationships that lack emotional depth or engaging in impulsive actions that are meant to draw attention. These behaviors, while understandable, often lead to further dissatisfaction and regret, as they don't address the root causes of the emotional pain. Despite the challenges, this stage is not without its opportunities for growth. The need for validation can serve as a mirror, reflecting the areas where a man feels inadequate or unfulfilled. By paying attention to what he seeks from others, he can gain valuable insights into his own emotional needs and insecurities. This self-awareness is a crucial step toward healing. The key to navigating this stage lies in shifting the focus from external validation to internal validation. While it's natural to seek reassurance from others, lasting confidence comes from within. Building self-worth through self-care, setting personal goals, and celebrating individual achievements can help a man reclaim his sense of identity and value. Practices like journaling, mindfulness, or seeking guidance from a trusted mentor or therapist can be instrumental in developing a deeper understanding of himself. In summary, the search for validation is a natural response to the emotional void left by someone's withdrawal of care. While external validation can offer temporary relief, true healing comes from learning to value oneself. By turning inward and addressing the root causes of insecurity, a man can emerge from this stage stronger, more self-assured, and ready to embrace emotional growth. Seriously, as the emotional stages progress, a man eventually reaches a critical turning point, the realization of accountability. This stage is a profound moment of self-awareness where he begins to reflect on his role in the dynamics of the relationship and the events that led to the withdrawal of care. Unlike earlier stages, which are often fueled by external blame or internal confusion, this phase demands a deeper level of introspection, honesty, and responsibility. Realizing accountability does not come easily. It often arises after a period of self-doubt where the man has wrestled with questions about what went wrong. Initially, it may be tempting to attribute the other person's behavior solely to external factors, such as their personal struggles or changing priorities. However, as he reflects more deeply, a realization dawns. Relationships are a two-way street, and his own actions or inactions may have contributed to the shift. This realization can feel both humbling and empowering. It is humbling because it forces a man to confront uncomfortable truths about himself, such as neglecting emotional needs, failing to communicate effectively, or taking the relationship for granted. These realizations may trigger regret, but they also provide clarity and an opportunity for growth. At the same time, it is empowering because accountability places the power of change in his hands. If his actions played a role in creating the problem, his actions can also play a role in improving or preventing similar issues in the future. One of the challenges of this stage is distinguishing accountability from self-blame. Accountability involves taking responsibility for one's role in the situation without falling into the trap of believing that everything was solely one's fault. Relationships are complex, and the withdrawal of care is rarely caused by one person alone. This distinction is important because self-blame can lead to guilt and resentment, while accountability fosters growth and learning. During this stage, a man may begin to ask himself specific and constructive questions. Did I express my appreciation often enough? Was I present and attentive when they needed me? Did I communicate my feelings clearly, or did I expect them to read my mind? Were there signs I ignored that indicated they needed more from me? These questions allow for a deeper understanding of his own behavior and patterns. He may come to realize that small, seemingly insignificant actions, or lack thereof, had a cumulative effect on the relationship. For example, consistently brushing off their concerns or failing to prioritize quality time may have created a sense of neglect. The realization of accountability is also a chance for personal growth beyond the relationship. By understanding his role in the situation, a man can identify areas where he can improve, not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships, family dynamics, and even professional interactions. It becomes a foundation for emotional maturity and better communication. Ultimately, this stage is about learning and evolving. It's not about dwelling on past mistakes, but using them as stepping stones to build stronger, healthier connections moving forward. By embracing accountability, a man takes ownership of his actions and choices, paving the way for deeper self-respect and more meaningful relationships in the future. The final stage a man faces when someone stops caring for him is emotional growth or retreat. This is the point at which he must make a choice about how to respond to the emotional turmoil and challenges he has been facing. The emotional journey filled with shock, denial, self-doubt, confusion, and accountability all culminates here. The way a man chooses to navigate this stage will define not only the future of the relationship, but also his personal emotional development. It's a moment of decision. Does he use the experience as a catalyst for growth, or does he retreat emotionally, closing off to further connection and vulnerability? The path of emotional growth is marked by a willingness to learn from the pain and transform it into something meaningful. This is not an easy route. It requires confronting the emotional scars left by the experience, understanding what went wrong, and using the lessons learned to improve oneself. Emotional growth means acknowledging the hurt, but instead of allowing it to fester or diminish his spirit, he channels it into self-improvement and a deeper understanding of relationships. One aspect of emotional growth is learning to develop better emotional regulation. A man who chooses growth understands that pain is a natural part of life and relationships, but he doesn't let it control him. He recognizes that feelings of rejection, loss, or abandonment are temporary, and he learns to manage these emotions in healthy ways. He might turn to self-care practices such as meditation, journaling, or physical activity to maintain emotional balance. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, but rather processing them in a way that promotes healing. Another key element of emotional growth is vulnerability. When someone stops caring, the instinct may be to retreat and shield oneself from further pain. But true emotional growth comes from the courage to remain open to future relationships, even after experiencing hurt. Vulnerability becomes a strength. A man who embraces this vulnerability is willing to share his feelings, express his needs, and be honest about his emotional state. He no longer sees emotional openness as a weakness, but as a source of connection and intimacy. Emotional growth also involves setting healthier boundaries. A man who has been hurt learns the importance of self-respect and personal space. He begins to differentiate between giving love freely and protecting his emotional well-being. By setting clear boundaries, he ensures that future relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding rather than one-sided care. He understands that love and care are reciprocal, and he won't settle for less than he deserves. On the other hand, emotional retreat is a defense mechanism. It involves withdrawing from emotional investment to protect oneself from further pain. This is a natural reaction when someone feels vulnerable, rejected, or emotionally drained. However, retreating emotionally comes with its own set of challenges. While it may offer temporary protection from further hurt, emotional retreat can also lead to isolation, loneliness, and the avoidance of future intimacy. And a man who chooses emotional retreat might shut down, bury his feelings, and avoid vulnerability, even with those who genuinely care about him. Over time, this retreat can become a pattern that prevents him from forming deep, meaningful connections in the future. The danger of emotional retreat is that it reinforces the belief that vulnerability equals pain. This mindset can create a cycle of avoidance where a man becomes unable to fully engage in new relationships or even with himself emotionally. Rather than confronting the discomfort of emotions, he hides behind walls that keep him from truly experiencing life and love. In summary, the decision to grow or retreat emotionally is the defining moment in a man's journey when someone stops caring for him. The choice is not always clear, and the path to growth can be difficult, but it offers the possibility of deeper self-awareness, healthier relationships, and emotional resilience. Emotional retreat may feel like a safer option in the short term, but it often leads to long-term isolation and a lack of fulfillment. On the other hand, emotional growth requires courage, openness, and a willingness to learn from the past. In the end, the choice between growth and retreat will determine how a man moves forward, not just in that relationship, but in all future connections. The emotional stages a man faces when someone stops caring for him are complex and challenging, but they also offer significant opportunities for growth and self-awarenesses. From the initial shock of change to the final decision between emotional growth or retreat, each stage is a critical moment of transformation. In the face of hurt, confusion, and self-doubt, a man is forced to confront not only the dynamics of his relationship, but also his own emotional patterns, vulnerabilities, and desires. Ultimately, how he chooses to navigate these stages will shape his future, both in relationships and in personal development. The shock and denial give way to deeper reflection, where self-awareness and accountability become crucial in understanding the role he played in the relationship's dynamics. The search for validation and emotional confusion highlight the need for emotional clarity and self-worth. But the final stage, the choice between emotional growth or retreat, is what defines the ultimate outcome. Choosing emotional growth means embracing vulnerability, self-respect, and learning from the past. It allows a man to heal, evolve, and build healthier, more meaningful connections moving forward. On the other hand, emotional retreat, though natural in the short term, can lead to emotional stagnation, isolation, and a fear of future intimacy. The key takeaway is that emotional pain is a part of the human experience, but how one responds to it determines emotional resilience and future happiness. While the journey through these emotional stages may be long and difficult, the rewards of emotional growth, self-awareness, stronger relationships, and a more balanced emotional life are worth the effort. By embracing these stages and choosing growth, a man can emerge stronger, more self-assured, and better prepared to build the relationships he truly deserves.